And now to deliver his maiden speech, Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr. Speaker, honourable members, I feel privileged to be elected to this Parliament and to have this first opportunity to address you today. I want to begin by extending greetings to New Zealand First supporters throughout the country, and especially to my friends and supporters in Christchurch, to whom I also extend my sincere thanks. My hometown is on its knees. Christchurch is bent, buckled and broken in everything except spirit. My first objective as a list MP for New Zealand First and as a proud Cantabrian is to do all I can to assist with the recovery from earthquakes and also to seek better governance for the city. So I'll speak about those issues first. Secondly, I'll speak about egalitarianism as my driving force in politics. And thirdly, I want to talk about environmental sustainability as a strongly held personal mission. So first, Christchurch. Magnitude 6.3 on the Richter scale for the February 2011 earthquake does not adequately describe it. In my home on the Port Hills, directly above the fault, I felt the indescribable force of vertical ground acceleration 2.2 times the force of gravity, the largest ever recorded anywhere in a populated area. But it was the great rolling waves following the initial shock which threatened to turn my home onto its side. Luckily, it came back to vertical again. And on top of all that was the severity of the shaking for nearly a minute. I helped neighbours out of shattered homes and looked across at the white cloud of dust rising over the central city, 1,000 feet high and 4 kilometres wide. Then came the exodus from the central city. People abandoned their cars on unpassable roads, covered in liquefaction, and were exhausted even before reaching the hill, often with cuts and bruises and tears streaming down terrified faces. Searching for children at the local school or rushing home to loved ones. Those terrible experiences are now all in the past, but the effects are not. We who live in Christchurch will rebuild our homes and our city. And it is still New Zealand's second largest city, essential to the nation's economy and especially to the viability and progress of the South Island. The government's initial response was welcome, even though many have reservations about home valuations and a raft of other issues. It is what happens next that really matters. We must turn adversity into advantage. There are 6,600 homes in the red zone, 1,000 in the orange zone, and thousands more elsewhere requiring demolition and replacement or reinstatement. Too little is being done and much too late. While nobody wants bad, hasty decisions made, neither can the current uncertainties and delays be allowed to continue. For many people, these are worse than the earthquakes themselves. And the Earthquake Commission has been too slow, as have the insurance companies, with the reinstatement or rebuilding of homes and businesses. The Commission has paid too much attention to administration and too little to getting the work done on the ground. It is clearly under-resourced and is unable to reach its statutory targets. It needs to put more resources where they are most needed, especially the rebuilding and reinstatement of homes and businesses and the funding approvals needed for those purposes. And we all want to know what will happen to the red zone land. As the thousands of houses are demolished, we must not be left with vast areas of dusty demolition deserts to add to the problems we already face. I call upon the government to urgently establish and fund a plan to turn these areas into properly maintained grassed parklands, which will enhance the environment of the city, while final decisions are made on how to deal with this land in the longer term. Central City building owners also need certainty. Much good work has been done to develop a plan for a bright new Central City for Christchurch, but when will it be done, and who will pay for it? A few have taken the punt that the Central City will recover soon and have started rebuilding. Many others are not so sure, and some capital is taking flight. Leadership is called for, and more resources are required, because insurers, developers and the council will be unable to fully fund the rebuild and the implementation of the plan in a timely way without assistance. So I call upon the government to quickly establish a major urban renewal fund for Central Christchurch, provided over a period of years, designed to assist the rebuild of both public and private structures by building owners and businesses, and by the City Council for public space and transport enhancements. This would go a long way to encourage an early rebuild at a standard all New Zealand can be proud of. Another urgent issue for the government is insurance. Many thousands of homeowners in Christchurch cannot get insurance for new homes or cannot get insurance for their existing properties. Some companies have departed the market altogether, leaving significant insurance gaps. Without insurance, people can't get mortgages, blocking rebuilding. I call upon the government again to establish a government-backed insurer in New Zealand with a mission to provide cover for everybody who needs it. Kiwi Bank has been a great success, so could Kiwi Insurance too. But more is needed for Christchurch. I was a councillor there for 15 years. But the Christchurch City Council now is dysfunctional and deeply unpopular. Part of the problem is its failure to establish adequate governance systems, delegations, accountability and transparency. An underlying cause, though, was the unwise decision of the Local Government Commission in 2004 to reduce the number of councillors from 24 to 13, while at the same time greatly increasing the size of the city. Small councils for large populations is not viable nor democratic. On top of this was the sacking of the Regional Council in Canterbury. Its poor performance, especially over water issues, did, I think, justify its replacement by commissioners, but it is obvious now that Christchurch needs a new broom to clean up the whole local government mess. And local democracy must, of course, be restored. It is time, I think, for a new unitary authority for Christchurch to be established for election in 2013. Unitary authorities for all of the Canterbury local authorities are needed, with no need to change boundaries, but with an adequate number of councillors for good governance and effective representation of residents. The time for the government to act on this is now. Delay will serve neither the need for certainty nor the need to restore effective democratic governance. Moving on to other matters, I am, as I said before, an egalitarianist, and born in 1946, I am one of the first of the baby boomers. I want to restore the best of the New Zealand I grew up in, a country which celebrates personal achievement, but not by the strong benefiting at the expense of those less able. A country which does not have the great gap between rich and poor we see today. And a country which not only keeps but develops its important strategic publicly owned assets, especially power generation companies, for the benefit of all, not only for the benefit of those who can afford to buy shares. I want to do all I can to remove prejudice, division and greed. And I want to close the income gap. Already in this country, incomes are too low for most and too high for some. The trend under successive national and Labour governments has been in the wrong direction. We must progressively raise the minimum wage to a level capable of adequately supporting a home-owning family. But instead our system encourages greed. The huge salaries received by some are not really earned. They simply exploit the system. The tax system must be used to help close the incomes gap. It needs comprehensive review by an independent commission, yes, once again, with terms of reference aimed at a fairer system. And the government must actually act and implement those findings. GST has been increased too much as a proportion of the total tax take. It should be reduced. It impacts unfairly on the poor. But the tax system must also be broadened, including appropriate capital taxation measures, and it must be more progressive. Most of all, it must eliminate the tax minimisation methods by which high earners currently pay much less than they should. With regard to superannuation, the main parties seem to see the elderly as a problem. To me and to New Zealand First, they have earned superannuation at a level to provide a reasonable living income, along with a range of gold card services to make retirement easier. Baby boomers were told during their working lives by successive governments to rely on the taxation system as a source for their retirement incomes. But now, much too late, they are being told to rely on savings. And they were told to rely on 65 as the qualifying age. But now the message seems to be 67 or even 70 years. This would be a gross betrayal and effectively a breach of the social contract which resulted from the acts and policies of past National and Labour governments. The qualifying age must remain at 65 years indefinitely, but with an option for individuals to delay it in return for a higher pension. Now, something about sustainability. New Zealanders have failed to live within the natural constraints of the physical environment. Only our low population has saved us from its worst effects. We are not just degrading our own world, we are robbing future generations. New Zealand needs a practical, achievable, honest approach to sustainability issues, not effective greenwash. Much more attention needs to be made to employ green technologies for future development. The top priority is water, the gold or oil of the 21st century. I currently chair the Central Plains Water Trust in Canterbury. Its plan and consents for irrigation with water from the Rakaia and the Waimakariri rivers are based on protecting the natural character of the rivers through compliance with a robust regime of minimum flows, protecting aquifers, and on avoidance of pollution using a mandatory sustainable farming protocol built into the consents and into water use contracts. That approach must be entrenched through tougher regulation everywhere in the country. But without the large-scale water storage taken at times of plentiful flow, the reliability and sustainability of such schemes is compromised, and the 400 million or so far announced to assist sustainable schemes with storage is a drop in the bucket, and much greater commitment by government is needed. If we are going to achieve sustainable agricultural development and greater diversification. Energy, of course, is another top priority. The fossil fuel age has peaked and is already in decline. New Zealand is rich in renewable energy opportunities, hydroelectric power, geothermal power, wind power. These and other methods require government leadership and investment. There is no need to take the risks associated with deep-sea drilling or fracking. Waste issues still need urgent attention in New Zealand. I was proud to lead the Cape Valley Regional Landfill Project in Canterbury, achieving a much better environmental protection. But landfills will never be sustainable. It is essential to recover much more of our wasted resources